Hi, I'm Ben Bierman, and I chose arthritis for the topic of today's lecture. My mental model of arthritis was an older person with these characteristic swollen joints in their hands, having some pain and some reduction of flexibility in their fingers. That's about all I knew about arthritis, and I knew there had to be a lot more. So I set out to find out, first of all, what is arthritis? How do we define this disease? And how common is it, which to an extent determines how likely it is that I'll get it or that you'll get it. Next, I want to know how the disease can be prevented. Are there actions that we can take now that will reduce the chances that we'll get arthritis later? And then finally, if we do get the disease, what are the treatments that are available? Is there a cure for the disease? So finding the definition was quite easy. Arthritis means literally any disease of the joints, and that's a pretty broad definition. It turns out that there's over 100 different diagnoses that qualify as arthritis. But over 60% of the cases are either osteoarthritis or rheumatoid arthritis, and given the amount of time that we have today, that's what we're going to focus on. I started with an image of a hand, but it turns out that you can get arthritis in your knees, your ankles, hips, elbows, feet, or hands. To understand the disease, it's best to start out by looking at a healthy joint. In this case, we're looking at a knee, but all the joints are very similar in the body, and they are all beautiful masterpieces of design. The bones provide the structure for the body, but where the bones meet in a joint, their ends are covered with cartilage, which is shown in a light blue in this diagram. The cartilage is smooth and tough and flexible and provides a great bearing surface where the two bones meet. But to make the joint even better, it's wrapped in a sac, the synovial sac, the synovial membrane, which actually produces a fluid called synovial fluid that acts like grease in this joint and lubricates it. So we have these two smooth surfaces working inside of a lubricating fluid, and that can last a lifetime, millions of cycles. However, it can be damaged. And when it gets damaged, one damage modality is osteoarthritis. And in the case of osteoarthritis, what's happened is that smooth, hard, flexible cartilage has been damaged. And now, instead of the bones grinding on these smooth surfaces, we have bone grinding against bone. That's very painful and results in the joint not working the way that it should and not giving us smooth motion. You can get a very similar condition in the joint from a very different mechanism, and that's rheumatoid arthritis, which is actually a disease of the immune system. The immune system starts to attack this synovial membrane, and that changes the membrane, causes it to swell, but it also reduces the quality of the synovial fluid that's lubricating the joint and results in very, very rapid wear. So these two pictures of osteoarthritis and rheumatoid arthritis look pretty unpleasant, and so it causes you to ask, am I going to get this disease, or is somebody I love going to get this disease? And unfortunately, the answer is yes. This is a very, very common disease, as we'll see in the next slide. So the Centers for Disease Control, one of their tools is just a very, very simple self-reporting tool where they ask a very large population of people, have you had a disease or do you currently have the disease? And when they ask 18 to 44-year-olds if they've had arthritis or have arthritis, 1 in 15 say yes. By the time we get to 45 to 64-year-olds, it's now 30%. And by the time we get to 65-year-olds and older, it's almost half of the people that have had the disease or have the disease. And so if it's over half the people in the United States that by the time they're 65 have this disease, or older than 65 they have this disease, it means that we're very likely to get it, or if we don't get it, somebody that we love will. This chart shows a breakdown of those cases also from the Centers for Disease Control. And you can see the other joint illnesses here. Carpal tunnel syndrome has just exploded with the use of computers. So there's 10 million cases of carpal tunnel syndrome, and that certainly counts as a arthritis because it's a disease of the joints. Also fibromyalgia, and then in this slice of 6.4 million cases, are all those 100 other diagnoses that we don't have time to speak to today. So this is a difficult disease, and it's also very prevalent, very common. Is there anything that we can do to avoid getting this disease? Fortunately, the answer to that is yes. And the steps are actually fairly easy, and the same advice that applies to avoiding a lot of other diseases. First and foremost, don't smoke. Smoking has been correlated with rheumatoid arthritis. People who smoke 10 pack years, that means 1 pack a day for 10 years or 2 packs a day for 5 years, have a 26% higher likelihood of getting rheumatoid arthritis than people that don't smoke. If they increase that and look at people that have smoked for 20 pack years or more, we find that the likelihood of getting rheumatoid arthritis goes up by 50% compared to non-smokers. So bottom line is, if you didn't have enough good reasons to not smoke before, this is another great reason to not smoke. So what about osteoarthritis? How can we prevent that? And it turns out that there are things we can do. And fortunately, they're great things. They're fun things. Get outside, move, and maintain a healthy weight. Really the most important thing that you can do. Regular exercise and maintaining a healthy weight are key. There are some tips about how to do that exercise to make sure that you don't get arthritis. First of all, you want to avoid injuries, sports injuries. And that means doing the exercises the right way, concentrating on form, and certainly if you have an injury, not running on an injury or biking on an injury. The next thing is you don't want to repeat the same stress every day. And so cross-training has a lot of value there because the joint is loaded in very different ways in different exercises. So running one day, biking another day, swimming another day is much better than just running every single day. The other thing that we can do, there's more to this than just maintaining a healthy weight and doing lots of cardio. It also helps to do strength training. And there's 2 reasons that helps. First of all, by strengthening the joint, you reduce the chance of getting some kind of joint injury, like a torn ligament. And those kinds of injuries often lead to arthritis later in life. And so by having a stronger joint, you might prevent an injury. The other thing is a stronger joint keeps the components aligned the way that they're supposed to work, and that may be helpful as well. But let's say you get the disease. What do we do now? There's several treatments available. I think the disappointing thing for me is there's no treatment that just makes your joints the way that they were when you were younger before these joints degenerated. So there's physical therapy, stretches and exercise that can help restore some flexibility and strength. There's appliances that can stretch the joint out so that the bones aren't grinding against each other as hard. There's various mechanical devices that can help. If the pain or inflammation is bad, you can take over-the-counter medications. If that's not giving you adequate relief, the doctor can inject cortisone or corticosteroid into the joint to help further reduce inflammation, or they can inject these viscose supplements, and they are like a replacement for the synovial fluid. They are like adding grease to the joint. Finally, if all else fails, the joint can be replaced. And you can see here what a joint replacement looks like. We have a normal knee, and then an arthritic knee where the cartilage has been destroyed, and then a replaced knee where all of the end of the bone and the cartilage has been cut away and replaced with a plastic and metal device that repeats the same function as the original joint. And these joints can last about 20 years. So what about just restoring functionality? There's some research going on. Now, one of the papers I found interesting was Clostridium butyricum. So this is a popular culture that's sold in Asia, like acidophilus is sold here. And rats treated with this culture were found to have better healing and actually reversed some damage done by the arthritis. So bottom line is arthritis is a disease of the joints, really any disease of the joints. It's very common. And if you don't get it, someone you love will. But we can reduce our chances of getting it. And the main thing is just staying fit and not smoking. Thanks.